Hello everyone, welcome you all to the Tech Geek webinar. Thank you for joining the session today. The topic of today's talk is continuous integration in agile test automation. It will be a 1 hour session with around 40 to 45 minutes for the presentation and the remaining time for the Q&A. So if you have any questions, please send them to us using the questions tab on the GoToWebinar control panel. I'm Anmol, the moderator of this session, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to our guest speaker, Sumati Gopalakrishnan, project lead at Mphasis. Sumati has been employed with Mphasis for over 7 years and has worked on various test automation tools. She has mainly worked on telecom and banking domain. Her background includes design, development, testing, and technical consulting for various software products. She has developed and implemented automation solutions for desktop, web, and mobile applications. In her current role, she is involved in development and leading assignments in testing automation for web applications. So without any further delay, let me introduce you all to our guest speaker. Over to you, Sumati.
Yeah, thank you, Anmol. Very good evening to everybody. And again, a thanks to Anmol for giving me this opportunity. So as mentioned by Anmol, I have been working on test automation for quite a long time with various tools and various platforms, considering web and mobile both. And also I have been mainly working on the banking domain, and some of my time I had been working on the telecom domain also. So we'll start with today's topic for the webinar, which is continuous integration with test automation. Okay, so today's session we will follow as per the agenda, and our main focus would be on the CI/CD process, which are currently being followed by many of our organizations. So our agenda would be what is CI. We will just briefly go through the process of CI and why CI/CD is needed, and a comparison of a process of the traditional method which we had been followed in the past and the CI/CD process which is up and running in the current organization. And also we will see how testing is being involved in a step-to-step basis during the CI, the entire CI process, a workflow, how CI works for any application, and then for any process. And then we will just go through the business benefit of CI, and then we will also go through the various tools which are there in market, which are currently present in market, which many organizations are using as per their need and requirement for their application. So we'll start with what is a continuous integration. So nowadays we have customers who need the features, products to be delivered frequently to the users. We have market needs wherein the situation comes with the shipment of the product and the features are done very frequently, maybe on the daily basis or on the weekly basis. So in this scenario, the CI/CD plays a vital role. CI is a process where the developer and the QE team are required to perform a regular check-in to the source control. So for this entire CI process to be successful, we would need each and every task of the pipeline to be automated. The automation and the testing process, which is being involved in each and every step of the CI, plays a vital role, because that will again make the entire process successful. We will just go through the below diagram. If you see the first block of the diagram wherein the code is there, this is where the development team and the QE teams are getting involved. the development team and the QE team checks in their code to a code source, and then in the CI pipeline, which is basically meant to generate a build and test the build. That is the second block of this diagram, whereas the CI and the pipeline is there, wherein the build is getting generated, and with this build, a version will be tagged. The third block is where the CD, that is the continuous deliver and the deployment process happens, which involves the operation team to get the deployment done to various staging servers and the production servers. So the staging servers can be your QA server or the pre-prod server, and then finally it is getting deployed to the production server. Okay, let me walk you through the process which was traditionally followed before the CI came into a picture, where the entire SDLC was in a linear fashion from the planning, that is from the design until the requirement. Okay, so what was the challenges which we had faced in the traditional approach? Different team works at a different location. So DevOps is a platform which gives you the way to gather the dev team, QA team, and the operation team. So it's all about, DevOps is all about a collaboration which is needed between different teams, and it also involves continuous improvement and continuous learning. So most of us in an agile environment are always, we have a challenge to test the application readiness within a predefined timelines, which is required as per the market requirement. And also from the testing perspective, we have to make sure the product is meeting the market objective with an accuracy and with a readiness on the application. So these are the challenges which we were facing during our traditional system. Now coming to the CI, the process, so these are the benefits which we will be getting when we are moving a step ahead and going to the CI/CD. So in the continuous integration, we will be doing a daily and a weekly build testing, which will be involved both the dev team and the testing team. So whatever product is being delivered, it will be a robust product. We will be reducing the application cost. Since we are doing a checking or the commit on the daily basis, the defect will be detected on a much earlier phase. And definitely, since we have everything automation in place, so we will be having a continuous monitoring and a measurable reports for in the entire process. Okay, so this, let me just walk you through the process which is being followed on the traditional approach, which is in a quite linear fashion, wherein we have a plan and analysis phase for the requirement, and it ends up with the operation team, which is going in a linear basis. So there are, as you can see in the diagram, there are a couple of handoff or the turnover between the teams, again, which results in a waiting time, specifically, which is oriented against to the cost, and is moreover, if there is a failure during the integration time, there is a waiting time which is being involved for the dev team. So those are where the drawbacks or the challenges which we had been faced when we were using the traditional approach. So what is going good in the new approach? Since there is a continuous code checking, continuous testing, continuous delivery, and the deployment, if you can see in the diagram, the plan, the code, build, automated test, release, deploy, operate, and monitor, all it is going hand in hand. So it is a continuous process which is being done, So identifying of the failure at the later stage, that is during the integration stage, is being avoided, and then the turnaround and the productivity is being increased. So this way we are trying to improve the quality of the product which is getting delivered to the customer, and then we are avoiding the defects which we will be finding at a later point of stage, that is at the integration stage, we will be avoiding. So there is definitely a time which is being saved here. Okay. In this slide, what we are talking about is how the testing is being carried out in a CI process. So as I mentioned earlier also, in the CI, the entire CI process, the testing plays a vital role. So we will be targeting to automate each and every activity what we do in the entire CI process, so that we are getting an accurate report, and then we are publishing the same to the stakeholders. So testing is a key activity which is performed at every stage by every single resource at every point of time till the deployment is done. So in this particular pyramid, if you see, the unit test cases is the first one which we do as soon as there is a check-in, followed by the integration test, and followed by the UI test. So we have to do a granular level of unit testing during the coding which is done by the development team, and then during the integration testing, the QA team would be involved in testing the both functional and regression test cases using automation. So in our current project, or in Emphasis, we are using various tools to do the unit testing and integration testing. Mainly we focus on the Selenium for the functional testing and the regression testing. So we are again integrating it with other CI tools, for example, Jira, Bitbucket and all, to have this process end-to-end validated and automated. So on the UI test, there would be a minimal level of validation which would be performed. Most of our validation would be performed on the unit test level, and whatever is pending, it will be done on the integration level testing. So this manual session-based testing, what does that do? Manual session-based testing, it is like anything which we cannot automate. Not everything can be automated for a particular application or for a particular product. So suppose like we have a few test cases which are based on the visual checking and then a usability checking kind of thing. So those validations which we cannot automate, and though it will not give you a proper result when we try to automate, those are considered on the manual session-based testing. So most of the validations should be automated, except for few, as we said, as the visual checking and the usability testing. Even it will involve the performance testing also needs to be automated. So the various ways to achieve automation, we have different scheduling execution of the automation script. So we have predefined schedulers available or integrated with the CI pipeline, which we can be executed or which can be triggered either manually on a scheduled timeline, or it can be automated on a daily basis or on a weekly basis for a regression testing. So CI platform supports parallel test execution, which we achieve it through in many ways. Like we have Selenium Grid, wherein we are trying to achieve a parallel test, wherein we are also involving multiple virtual machines execution, so that all the regression test cases are being executed within few hours. Notification is being set to each and every stakeholders, which is a built-in step in the CI pipeline. Reporting is available to the entire team. So these are the best practices which we are following in general in our organization. So notification is being set up, and then reporting is available to the entire team as soon as there is a success, that is the build is success or the build is failure. A notification is being sent to the development team or to the other stakeholders, whoever is concerned regarding the success or the failure. Speed up the testing process, improve the quality and accuracy, and then quick defect detection. The main aim or the agenda of implementing the CI process is to quickly identify the bugs or the defects which are there, and then feedback loop through the development team so that they can fix the bug as soon as possible, and then redeploy the code or recheck in the code to the source control. Once they recheck in the code, again the entire process of building and then staging and then deployment, it happens. So during this testing unit test case, we have a static analyzing tool which is being integrated with the CI pipeline, which we are using internally, that is Sonar Cube report. This report is a static analysis report for the development code, which have been widely used to verify the code standards. So this report will give you the basic standards wherein the code is getting passed or it is getting failed. So the development team will get a notification of all the kinds of failures which they are having in the code, and suppose the failure can be in terms of the standards which are not being followed, or the coverage which is not there, or in any duplication of the code. So they will get a notification on a general standard guidelines which is predefined as part of this Sonar Cube. So the development team will get a report, and then they will be able to fix it on their code level. Okay, so this particular slide is talking about a general workflow of how a continuous integration works for any application or for any process which is there. Suppose we are having, as we are working for a web application, I will consider that as our item to be getting progressed. So for a web application which is going to be deployed on a web server, we have a set of developers responsible for coding. So if you see on the left pane, we have developers and the QE engineers working on a particular code. So the development team would be working on a feature of within a sprint, and the QE will be parallelly working on the functional test automation plus a regression automation. When the code is committed, once the code is ready, means they have developed the feature, the code will be committed to a version control system. So currently, if you see, this is a code repository wherein the code is getting committed. So the code repository, it can be a Bitbucket or a GitHub, anything. So for us, we are using Bitbucket as our code repository. Once the code is being committed to the code repository, CI server will come to know that some check-in has happened, and it will generate a build. It will generate a build. This is the first stage of the CI pipeline, wherein the build is getting generated and with a version tag. The same build is being checked out in your local, and then it is being tested through the various testing process, right from the unit test case to the functional test case to the regression test case. So this build is getting, so if in case the build is a failure, the CI will be notifying the developer with the failure message saying that the build has been failed. So this is the continuous process which is being followed, and the development team, as soon as they get the notification, they will have to fix the the defects which they have got, or the reason why the build is getting failed, and then will redeploy or recommit their code on the code repository. So this is a process which should be done till we get a positive build or a green build. Once the testing is completed, we move to the deployment phase, wherein you deploy the code to a staging or a test server, wherein the QA will be involved in, and parallelly they will be in the CI server. The automation scripts would be running once the deployment is done on the staging server. So they have the automation script, regression script, and the function script ready on the. So we have a scheduling job which will allow us the automation script to execute on the staging server. So post we get 100% validation of all the test cases, of all the automation test case execution. The deployment is followed to the production. So post the staging validation is performed, the deployment is being done on the production environment. In any stage, if an error occurs, an email is triggered to the concerned team or to the dev team if in case there is a failure on the build. So if you can see, there is a numbering done for each and every activity which is being done here. So the developer checks out the code, and then it is being with the changes whatever is being done, it is again checking to the code repository. The CI is triggered with the build, and the build is again tested both by the dev and the QA team. Once we get a build, that is green, the same build is being deployed to the staging server and then to the production server. In case of any failure, the notification is being sent to the dev team. Okay, this slide is more or less talking about the same thing what we were being discussing on the process which is being followed. This slide is talking in detail about the activities which each team would be doing in terms of carrying out the continuous integration and the deployment process. So as soon as a user story is being generated or being it is being published, the dev team will come up with the acceptance criteria for the user story, followed by the test team. They will be writing the test cases and the manual or the functional test design, that is the automation test cases for the user story, and then followed by once the coding is done and it has been committed to the QA server, it has been deployed to the QA server, the test case execution are being done. So the entire process and the involvement of various activities which is being done both by the dev team, the BA, dev team, QA team, and the operation teams is involved in this particular workflow. And as I mentioned, the reporting with the failures and with the past result is being published or being sent in an email to the respective team. Just give me a moment, please. Okay. Here we spoke about the benefits of the CI, which enables a shorter feedback cycle when the changes are made. Code is always kept in a releasable state. So whenever the code is ready, we are trying to do a daily check-in of the code to the code base, and then the code gets back into the hands of tester quickly as soon as it is being checked in. Frees the team to do more interesting and valuable work, and then enables more frequent releases with new features. So this benefit of the CI is involved in releasing frequent releases with the new features within a less span of time. The quality is being improved. It makes it easier to find and remove bugs as frequent before the integration is being done. So at every stage before integration, the defects are being found and it is being reported to the dev team, and the same is being fixed. We have automation done at every stage. So we have multi-platform execution being done. We have cross-browser testing, cross-platform testing is being done when we are using this continuous integration. So whenever we have the traditional approach or the manual test execution, we will not have that much time before the release to do a execution in all the browsers. So with this scheduling and with this complete framework for automation, we were able to achieve cross-browsing testing and the cross-platform testing within a scheduler job which is being done. It reduces the risk of uncertainty greatly because all the time the team knows what works. So because the team is involved on the daily activity, so they would be knowing which person is doing what activity. So they will be keeping a track on what activity is being committed, so that during the integration testing, it will be their code will be less prone for defects. Okay, though CI/CD is being successful in many of the organization and in many of the projects, but there are few disadvantages or barriers, you can say, or we can say the challenges which we face when we try to implement the CI process. The first challenge is it is not that easy. So because we have to automate the entire process of the CI right from the planning till the operational is being done. So establishing a solid CI practice takes a lot of work and the technical knowledge which involves the team to get in detail of all the skill sets which are required for the CI to be implemented for any project. Setting up the server requires that build, and again the automation involves accurate automation in case we are involving. So automation of right from the functional regression testing to the deployment, needs to be automated. So that particular skill, automating everything in CI process takes time and a knowledge and setup configuration, which is a challenge to achieve. So these were quite of the challenges which we had for the CI to be implemented. Okay, so in our current project, we were using Bamboo as a pipeline for the CI integration, and then we integrate it with the Bitbucket server, wherein we will be checking in the code to the Bitbucket and then check out from the same to our local to test the application and to test our automation script. And it has been widely followed in the across emphasis of using the Bamboo as the CI integration pipeline. But if you see in market, we have other tools which are readily available. Few are open source tool and few are paid version tool, which gives us a lot of benefit of using CI process, which is being implemented across many organizations. So we have for source control management, the source code management, we have Bitbucket, Git, GitHub. So we have TFS which are being involved. So there are many. So it depends again on your requirement on which tool to be selected with with the cost involved definitely, and the requirement with which it is needed. So again, on the continuous build, we have Ant, Maven, Bamboo, Jenkins, which is being widely used by many organizations. Continuous testing, we have for code level testing, for unit testing, we have JUnit, and then we have for automation, the functional and the regression automation, we have Selenium, and UFT. So mainly we are focusing on Selenium. Again, for configuration management and containerizer, we have Chef, Docker, OpenShift, etc. So again, though we have a list of tools available in market, but again, it depends on your requirement on which tool to go, and the cost. Few are open source and few are paid versions. So we can definitely, we'll have to analyze your requirement with the tools which are readily available. So few of the tools already give you automated features of getting the bill generated and the deployment, but few you will have to configure it based on the need and based on the requirement from the customer end. Okay, so we have the session done for the CI/CD. So the session is open for question and answers.
Hi Sumiti, the questions are displaying on the questions panel.
Yeah, Anmol, just give me a moment. I will just go through the questions and will let the answers.
Sure, sure.
Okay. Okay, so we have a question from Jumana Sura saying, asking for integration test means build verification test. Does integration test means build verification test? So here the integration test, it means with the system test, you can say, or the integration set. So different development team, different teams will be having a multiple dev working on a feature, different features. So individually, when they will check their features, everything will be working as expected if they have done the coding as per the requirement. But if you integrate it with the other libraries and the existing code base, that's where your integration testing comes. So mainly we will be focusing on that integration testing. And then of course it is when the build verification testing, it is different from the integration test. What is meant here, that is the integration of the code or integration of the features which is being considered here. Okay, so we have one more question. Why you guys are using Selenium? Why not other tools? So this particular question is again an interesting one, because it again depends on the requirement with which you want to automate it, with which your features are. So suppose there are requirements which you think the tool should be feasible or compatible enough with your application. So there are other tools available in the market, but again it depends on your need and the requirement with which you choose the tool. The tool should be compatible with your application. Ultimately, the automation turnaround time should get the ROI you should get it. So if you choose the tool, should be compatible to your application automation, and then the automation result should be as appropriate as needed. Okay, we have a question here in Agile development. Who is responsible for integrating the CI/CD? It is a task of developer or the tester or the DevOps team. Okay, so here this question is like it is not like any specific team is only engaged for this particular process. It is like on the CI/CD process, every team, be the dev team, the QE team, and the operation team, are involved in being right from the day one. So when we get a requirement, It is the task of the dev and the QA team to discuss on the requirement, understand the acceptance criteria, and then go ahead with the coding and then go ahead with the validation of that particular code. So right from the day one, it is the all the teams put together like dev team, QA team, and the DevOps team are being involved. DevOps team comes into picture from the build to the deployment. So initially till the CI pipeline, it is only the dev team and the QA team is being involved. Whenever we are carrying out the deployment and the delivery, that is the continuous delivery and the deployment, that is where your configuration and the operation teams comes into picture. Okay, we have a question. What is the role of QA in setting up the pipeline? QA role is not only in the set, or not only is involved in the testing of the functional and the regression test cases. As I mentioned earlier also, whenever we get a requirement for a user story or for a feature, it is right on the day one, the QA will be involved in analyzing the requirement or analyzing the feature which needs to be developed and tested, and then will come up with the acceptance criteria in parallel with the dev team, and then we will be writing up with the test cases and the automation for that. So QA team would be in the pipeline. QA team will also be involved in automating the functional test cases and the regression test cases, which will be checked into the source code and again involved in the integrating the same in the CI pipeline. So as soon as there is a commit from the dev team, in the CI pipeline, the automation script would be triggered based on a scheduler job, or it can be triggered manually, which is being done by the QA team. Okay, so we have one more question: how functional test cases are covered in CI? So functional test cases, it is on the agile environment, functional test cases are being written initially as the manual test cases, and within the same sprint we are trying to automate the functional test cases. And again, these functional test cases, once it is delivered and being validated, we are moving it to the automation regression suite, which is again moved, which in turn is moved to the CI pipeline. So the functional test cases will be ultimately executed on the staging environment, and then it will be moved to the production environment as part of the regression suite. Okay, there is one other question. What are the languages, tools that one needs to master to start working on CI? So this CI, continuous integration, is not associated, or it's not being dependent on any of the languages. So we have the CI tool. Depending on the tool which you choose for your pipeline, it depends on it supports multiple languages like VB.NET, Java, and then C#. There are other languages also which it supports. So this is a process which is being followed, which is independent of your language. Okay, we have another question. Can CI/CD apply for a data warehouse project and for ETL? this data warehouse project and the data mart project, definitely we can have the CI/CD process implemented, wherein you can have all your data converted or transformed within a with a different logic or with different transformation logic which you apply. So the CI/CD is a process which you need to follow irrespective of which application. It can be applied for the legacy applications like mainframe, or the modernized applications, and for the ETL data warehouse projects also. There is a question: have you implemented CI for a mobile application development? I apologize. We have not yet implemented for any of the mobile. We have other teams working on implementing of the CI for the mobile application. Definitely, we will get back to you on this. But currently, in our team, we are involved with the implementation of the CI for. I mean, no, we are getting involved for the implementation of the CI for a web-based application. Another question we have is, can we okay, I I hope everyone is able to hear me. I
Hi
lost
Sumit,
my.
you lost the audio. Now everyone can hear you again.
So is it okay now, Anmol?
Yeah, it's okay now.
Okay. Okay, so what I was telling is, like, not everything can be automated. So we need to analyze and really go ahead with a decision saying which one is automatable and which one cannot be automatable. So the reason for being that few of the visual checkings and few of the no usability testing is where the human intervention is required. So those part of the features of the UI, definitely we cannot automate it. So that would be left for a manual test execution. Okay, so there is another important question from Vimni Bhatia saying that, where does CI/CD implementation change for API testing as compared to the functional testing? So your API testing, functional testing, all comes under your integration testing, which is your top level of the UI unit testing. So once your unit testing is done, the development team is done with the unit testing of their independent code, which is not dependent with any third party tool. Then when we are moving towards the integration testing, that's where your API testing and most of your functional testing is being performed, which involves integrating with the other libraries and with the other systems of the application. Okay, we have one more question. How to decide when my automated test cases will run in CI? So once we have started with the automation, so we'll have to really push the code on the daily basis or on the alternate basis to the CI. And if there is any error on the automation script, definitely there is a failure on the execution. We need to fix it and then push it again to the CI pipeline. So it is like, no, right on the sprint day one, we can start with the automation of any of the features for that sprint and then start integrating it with the CI pipeline. Yeah, there is one more question. Can CI be implemented for legacy systems, which is like 20 years old in Java, which has no unit test cases as well integration test cases written? This is quite tricky questions. We can implement the legacy, we can implement the CI process for the legacy systems also, but it's only like what I came across is like no, the CD process is the one thing which we will not do it as part of for the legacy based systems, but the continuous integration which involves the functional testing and the regression testing and the to verify whether your build is proper, yes, definitely we can implement the CI process for the legacy system. But yeah, the deployment process to automate for the legacy system, I really am not very sure about it, but we'll definitely get back to you, Yogesh, on this, and then we'll comment on this particular thing on the webinar. Okay, there is one more question from Pankaj Giridhar saying, what's the role of a tester in the DevOps environment, or rather, how much has a role changed from times of waterfall model to the agile to DevOps? So there is a drastic change in which the testers are being involved, the QA team is being involved right from the waterfall model to the DevOps or to the agile environment, what we are following currently. So during the waterfall model, it is only during the integration testing or during the time when the dev team would be handing over the code to us on the right application, we will be involved. But during the agile, right from the day one, it is on the unit test case level also the QA team is involved, and be it unit test, functional test, or regression test, right on the day one, acceptance criteria writing and then figuring out the requirement for a user story, QA team is getting involved on the DevOps. We have another question from Jed Vinish saying that in small scale company, can we use the CI process with manual testing? So CI process is being meant for automating everything right from the coding till the build deployment to the production server. So manually, if you're trying to apply CI process, probably you will not get the benefit which it is meant for, or from the customer end also, we will not get the benefit of the entire process. Then it is more or less similar to what is a linear fashion which we had been following in the traditional approach. Again, there is a repeated question: can we achieve CI/CD without test automation? I mean, no, definitely there will be manual process involved, but again, it depends. The main agenda of implementing CI/CD is to automate everything, all the process involved. So the benefit you will not get out of CI/CD if it is not being automated at any stage. So will QA team will be involved right from the beginning till the end the product is delivered? Yes, the QA team will be involved from the beginning till the end, that is till the code is deployed to the production. Okay, there is one question from Amol Deshmukh. What is the role of dev team in CI/CD? What does dev team need to do in the entire process? So it is not about the dev team and the QA team. It is about the team working together. It is like the dev team is the main for this entire process, wherein they will be checking in their code to the source code repository. And then once the check-in happens from their end, then only we are allowed to do the validation of that particular code. So the dev team is definitely being involved from the day one of the when you start implementing the CI process. What are the open source and licensed tools that help a team to implement CI/CD? We have couple of open source tool for the CI like Jenkins, and then we have paid versions also like Bamboo, TFS. So it again, as I said mentioned earlier, also it again depends on your requirement and the need from the customer end to implement the CI/CD process. But definitely, if you go through my slide, you will come across a different tool available in the market to implement the CI/CD for your application based on your requirement. There is one question of how is the scope of ROBO framework, but that again depends on the framework stabilization of how the automation script are being executed on this framework. I have personally not worked on this ROBO framework, but I have heard this framework is being integrated with no other CI pipeline tools like Source Labs. No, so definitely we can go ahead and then start using this framework. But I personally have no experience of using this ROBO framework. There are multiple questions on how to start with the automation right from the day one of a sprint when the build is not yet ready for you. That again depends on the collaboration with the dev team and the QA team. So there is definitely a collaboration involved between the teams to understand the requirement and then come up with a strategy, at least saying like which can be automated and which cannot be. And then there are multiple things which you need to get along with your dev team, and understanding the properties or the objects is being involved in the application. And then probably we can know ask for a stub or a mock application kind of thing, which will show you at least what kind of objects are involved in that particular feature. Then start with the capturing of that object, and then placing it in your file, and then start with the automation. Definitely, I understand that few of the features, until the application is there, you will not be able to develop. But we can at least start with the automation as soon as, and then as soon as the build is ready, it will just be an overview of the script being done, developed, and then we will be having the execution within the same sprint. We have a question of like what kind of automation reports and docs we will be taking care of. Like automation reports, it's again depends on the framework which you are using. So the framework which you are using for the automation, it should be well defined and well stabilized, which will be using the automation reporting feature and the logging feature, which will give you the logs for each and every step which you have done, and the reports that would be generated in any format, be it an HTML format, PDF format, or in any other format which you have specified in the framework. And then the particular report would be good enough to email across the the required stakeholders. So again, it is an integrated feature of your framework which is being developed by the automation team, and it is being integrated on the CI pipeline. So I mean, no, we'll have to integrate that particular feature of automation report with the framework. Okay, so there is a question of what are the major challenges faced during the transition from the Agile to DevOps process, and then how to overcome them. Probably that's a question if I understand it properly. So this transition, definitely it is a transition in the process which is being followed. From the traditional approach to the DevOps process which is being followed now. So it is a change which gets involved with all the other teams also. So definitely there is a major change, but this change is is integrated with collaborated with all the other teams, which gives you a quick feedback of whatever the work is being done. So though it involves the work which is being done to a greater extent, but the feedback process which it gives, that is good enough for you to continue the work. We have questions like multiple questions like what are the success factors for the continuous integration, which we have already discussed during the benefit of implementing the CI process. It is like you definitely, the main advantage is being identifying the bug at a very early stage before the integration, and then we have everything automated in place, so right from the regression test cases to the deployment. So definitely the turnaround time which you get to release any feature to your staging server or to your production server is very quick. So those are the benefits, or those are the success factors which you get out of continuous integration implementation. Yeah, is it practical? There is a question, is it practical to implement in sprint automation? Definitely it is practical to implement in sprint automation, and we are doing in our current project wherein we will be taking it up with the automation within the sprint which is being delivered. So we are trying to have the development done, and then in this parallelly we will be writing our manual test cases along with the automation script, and then once the execution is done for manual one round, and then we will be taking it up with the automation script execution within the same sprint. So whenever you're trying to estimate your effort for a user story or for a feature, so definitely it should be considered for both manual dev for coding, manual test execution, and your automation sprint. So it is possible within the same sprint. So again, there is a question, is CI used only for the web application, or we can use it for the product development projects as well? So I specifically I agree that no, it is more used for the product development projects, because there you have the need of releasing the features very frequently. So that's how the CI CD implementation is being worked on the product. So that is more useful when you're trying to have a product development project. So there is a question how can we verify the coding standards for each developer's code while integrating it. So the coding standards or the predefined standards is based on the unit test level. I mean, no, that is based on the unit test cases level. It is not based on the integration test. So right on the granular level only we will be doing the code analyzing tool, or we will be using the code analyzing tool to have the verification done if the coding standards are being met. Okay, so I see most of the other questions are getting repeated, which is being already covered in other questions which are being asked. So I guess I have covered most of the questions which are posted in this webinar chat.
Thank you so much, Sumati, for this really motivating and empowering session today. I would also like to thank all our participants for making this webinar a great success. The session has been recorded and the recording will soon be available on techgeek.com. Thank you everyone for joining us, and a very special thank you to you, Sumati, for the insightful thoughts today.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Anmol.
Thank you.